Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining Irish Theatre Institute for this masterclass on subjectivity and emotion, renowned Argentinian playwright Javier Daulte. ITA's Accelerate programme is what this is part of, and it comprises of information sessions, workshops, masterclasses, mentoring and training. Following the popularity of last year's masterclass with Javier, ITI are delighted to have him back by artist demand. He first visited us in October 2019, and we're delighted to have continued a relationship with Javier. We hope that someday in the future soon, we'll be asking him to return to us in person to run some workshops. Over the next couple of weeks, there will be workshops with Javier, and applications for those workshops close tomorrow. I'd like to give you a very brief introduction to Javier before I hand over to him. Javier Daulte is a leading screenwriter, playwright and theatre director who has been recognised by more than 80 awards nationally and internationally. He's well known as a playwright for his treatment of gender, hyper and magic realism, and brilliant realistic dialogue. Javier's dramatic comedies have transformed the theatre scene in Buenos Aires and Barcelona, playing to packed houses for extended runs. Often directing his own work, his productions show his dynamic production style and unique approach to acting. He teaches acting courses, seminars, playwriting in Buenos Aires, Barcelona, Madrid, Mexico City, Caracas, and including Dublin last year, as well as other cities, and has participated in many international festivals. He is an educational advisor at the School of Interpretation, Euler City of Barcelona, where his method for actors is called the Daulte procedures. We're also especially delighted for him this evening. He is opening up a show, so we're very lucky to have him with us this afternoon, or this morning for him in Buenos Aires. So Javier, I'm going to hand over to you now.
Well, hello everybody. And thank you very much to the ITI, to Siobhan and Leigh and everyone there at the ITI. Thank you very much, Shane. And really it's a privilege to have been invited to talk about playwriting and theatre. I introduce Mia, and Mia is she's my niece, and she's here to help me if I have any difficulties with English, and I apologize for my bad English. I'll do my best. And I know that you been sent this article of mine, Subjectivity and Emotion. It doesn't matter if you didn't read it. You can read it whenever you want, and it's just a reference. It's not only about that I want to speak. I'd like to begin making a question to myself. That is, are there rules for playwriting? I remember long time ago, they were making an interview to different playwrights here in Buenos Aires, and there was a group of the old playwrights in Buenos Aires and the younger ones, and I was in the younger group. And there was my master, my mentor, my teacher. And he said that, in a moment, he said that theater and playwriting had rules. And I was very, very young and quite a terrorist. And so I told him, I said, no, playwriting has no rules. And then we began an argument, and suddenly this author, Ricardo Monti, almost shouted out, theater has rules and it takes a lifetime to learn them. And so I said, well, we are saying just the same thing. I think that playwriting has rules, but there are not universal rules for playwriting. Each play creates and develops its own rules. When I start a workshop, when I start writing myself, or when I start a workshop, I ask the students the only premise to follow for the first session is to write a beginning of a play. And what do they have to write? And I say that you should write the beginning that you'd like to see on theater. You have to write what you would like to see in a theater when you're sitting there. And because, you know, I think that theater is that. When you're sitting there before the stage and the lights begin to dim out, or the curtain is going up, and that few seconds that we are there and we are expecting something very special to happen, you know, that moment that you are expecting, and so you think something really magical can happen right now. And I think that what we feel and what we think in that moment we are there before the play starts, that is theater. That is theater. Almost all the times we are disappointed about what we see afterwards. And sometimes we are not disappointed. We are, so that's that. So this is very important for me, because I think that art and theater is an experience of joy. We go to a theater and we do theater because we enjoy it. We don't go to a theater to get smarter or to be cleverer or to learn anything. We don't go to a theater to learn anything. We go there to enjoy. So, if we really, we don't have to think what the audience needs to listen or to see, or what society needs to listen or to see. We have to be really faithful to this to what we want to see on theater. And this has to do with that child we all are. So there's the method about writing for me is to write as you were a child, as you were playing a game. You have to enjoy it, just enjoy it, and playing games. But then there's another part of this writing that is reading what I have written. And that is a different procedure, because I say you write like a child, but you read like a scientist. You know, we all, it's very often that this mechanism works just the opposite. We write like a scientist, you know, thinking a lot about that, thinking what is good for the audience to listen, and we are very responsible. I'm very aware about the needs of society and theater and all that, you know, and we are very conscious about what we are writing and very responsible about that. And then we read it like a child and say, oh, great, I love what I'm writing. My mother would love it too. And well, I suggest to do just the opposite movement, you know, writing like a child and then being very responsible when we are reading what we wrote, because writing is really easy. The difficult thing is to read your own writing. That is difficult to detect, to find, to really what is there? What have I? What did I write? And that's the maybe that's the difficult part of all, because because there's something that we wrote that maybe it's quite invisible for me. You know, that's why when we write something, we give it to someone else to read it so they can find out there in my own writing things that I didn't notice before. But that exercise, I should be able to do it myself. You know, I have to be able to detect in my own writing the things that I wasn't aware of them when I was writing them. And so when I read it properly, what I have written, there'll appear things that will surprise myself. And I have to be clever and smart to detect those things that weren't in my consciousness when I was writing. And when I find out what I'm writing, then I'll be able to find out a procedure. A procedure is like it's it's a series of rules, yes, that are making my writing work. To give you an example about this, I think that Samuel Beckett is a great creator of procedures. You know, in All the Happy Days, it's very, very clear for me because he puts on stage this woman buried up to her waist on the first act, and the procedure we can say that is, well, she's there. She has her bag. Several things are in that bag. There's a gun. There's a photograph. There's toothpaste. And so she speaks, and she does everything she can. Everything she can, and she says anything she wants to say, but there's one rule, that she speaks about anything but about of the fact that she is buried. That's a rule, and that's all. It's a very, very simple procedure, and the procedure is followed to the to the last consequences by Samuel Beckett. So and on the second act, we know she's buried up to her neck, and the procedure is exactly the same. This procedure is not, maybe you wouldn't detect it as an audience, you know, but and the play works itself, and it doesn't matter if you don't, as the audience, we don't detect and understand this procedure, but it works. But the author must be aware about this procedure, because this is the rule that he has to follow. Another example is Fellini's Amarcord, for example. What is the procedure in Fellini's Amarcord? I don't know if you have your very young people here, but it's a classic. Maybe you have seen that film, and nobody, that film is really magic, and it was really successful and everything, but no one really understood it. And then Fellini told what was the procedure to make that movie. And what was it? It was that the scenes appear in the movie in the same way that the memories of his childhood appeared in his mind. That is the order. That is the rule. The procedure is that. And so we are not able, as an audience, to be aware of that procedure, but the film works anyway. And so the logical of a procedure is mathematical. No, it's the logic. It's not only a logic about the plot. It's not only the logic of psychology, but it's the rules of a procedure. They are in so many times they are invisible, but they work anyway. And when we read our own script, we have to be able to detect that procedure. When I wrote a play of mine it is called Are You There? The first thing, it was a play, I was commissioned to write this play as a monologue, and I hated monologues. So, but they were inviting me to London to present it in a new festival, in a summer festival, a long time ago. And I was so delighted to be invited to London that I said, okay, yes, I'll write a monologue, even if I hate them. So, as I hated monologues, I put this male character on stage, speaking to a lot of people that weren't there. And so he spoke on the phone with his wife, he spoke on the phone with his mother, he spoke on the phone with his neighbor, and he speaks on stage with another character who is not there because he's invisible, and then we'll find out that he's a ghost. And there was the first version of this play for only one character, and when I came back home from London, I wanted to develop the play because I noticed that the play had a love story that wasn't developed, so I introduced a new character in the play, this male character's wife, and when but I say, oh my God, I have this first character, who is on stage for half an hour, speaking alone on stage, And so how can I introduce this new character? So I have to think in a mathematician way, in a like a scientist, and said, okay, if she's been half an hour alone on stage, she will come in and she has to be alone herself on stage. So I made this male character to come out from the flat, and then she comes in, and she thinks that her husband is in the bathroom, and so she speaks to his through the door, thinking that his husband is there, and it worked. And then I said, okay, but now I need that these two characters are to have these two characters on stage together. And I say, oh, I'm breaking my first rule, because my first rule was they are alone on stage. And so I sophisticated the rule and said, okay, he will come in. No, he will come in. He will come back to the flat, and she is there. So, I said, he comes, but he can't see her. And so that's when I discovered that she was dead, that his wife was dead, and he couldn't see her. And so the first rule was sophisticated. So they will never, they can be on stage, both characters, but they won't meet. And the funny thing of this example, that I wasn't aware that she, Anna, this character, was there until the procedure made me see her as a dead character. It was really an adventure to write that play. And well, I won't tell you how it develops. It's translated into English. If you want, I can send it to you. But the procedure, these rules, the series of rules that the procedures create, they made me write that play in that way. I had to follow the rules, and following the rules, something unexpected came out. And when you can, as you create, something unexpected comes out. I think that is really creation, because a creation has to surprise not only others, but yourself. And then we can say that a playwright has three strong and very powerful tools. That procedure, and then we have these other two, subjectivity and emotion. Subjectivity is very well known for anyone who has written a play, because subjectivity is in all plays, beginning with the Greek theater. No, Greek theater is the kingdom of subjectivity. No, we listen to a point of view, then we have to listen to another point of view about the same problem. And we are very used about subjectivity in theater. And that is what enjoy so much when we are reading or watching a play, because we see how different points of view develop before our eyes. And then we have this third tool, which is emotion. And emotion is a very, very important thing. And it's not so clear, maybe, than subjectivity or the procedure, because we have trouble with emotions, all of us. And it happens, I think that it happens all the time, that playwrights use the emotion as a logical response to the stimulus that appear on a play. And so something really terrible happens to the characters, and so they suffer with, in a logic way, to that what is happening to them. So if the character receives a very, very bad news, they will be, we can think that, well, he's sad, he's worried, he's disappointed. Or if he receives a very good news, so he will be happy and he'll be grateful about that. And so we think and we work about emotions in this logical way. I don't know if you know this essay about a short story by Anton Chekhov. No, about this, he said that a man goes to the casino, you know, and he loses a fortune. He goes to his house and shoots himself. No, he goes to the casino, loses a fortune, goes to the house and shoots himself. And then he says, a man goes to the casino, he wins a fortune, goes to his house and shoots himself. And he said, this is the story I want to tell. The other one is so logical that you don't need a play or a plot or an argument or a story or a short story to make it clear. It's really clear because that logic is very, it's really, really very clear. The man who goes to the casino, wins a fortune and then shoots himself, that needs to be developed. Because why he shot himself when he won a fortune? Emotions don't work logically. And that we can observe it in the good plays, the good literature, the good movies, and we can observe it in life. And we can observe it in great actors and actresses. And this is a very this is a very important issue for writing and for theater. And when I speak about emotion, and I work with actors when they train with me in my seminaries of acting seminaries. I train with them a very much about that, about training with the emotion. And so, well, remember that I said that this is a third tool for a playwright, and it's a third tool for theater. It's about the how emotion works. And I'd say that emotion has three characteristics. It is arbitrary. It's not. It's not. You can't deduce an emotion because of the argument of the plot. It's not right to think that when a bad thing happens to a character, the emotional response is, how you say, it's not, mira, ¿cómo sería? No es deducible. Te tengo por ahí.
Deductible,
sí, pero nada, ¿cómo sería? Bueno, no importa.
Cannot be deduced.
Yes, an emotion can't be deduced from the plot, you know, and it's arbitrary. You receive you receive a phone call, and they say your father is dead. There was a car in a car accident, and he is dead. What is the emotion that matches with this argument? We don't know. It's impossible to know which is the emotion that matches with that argument. That is the first rule of emotional for how emotion works. The second rule is that the emotion is mutant. It's changed all the time. It never stays the same. It's always changing. And the third rule is that emotion is not on it doesn't move only in a soft way from less to more or more to less. It can move it can change by jumps, you know. We can notice this in babies. The emotion in babies, they jump from one state, from one emotional state to another one with nothing in middle. It's not that it was all the time like that, but it can work like that. You know, an emotion is not this step, and so I'm getting aware about what is happening, so I'm feeling more and more from being sad to being crying and shouting my disgrace and everything. It doesn't move always in that way. So when we practice and we train with these three rules, and they work all together, because an emotion is arbitrary, but because if you receive a phone call and then they say your father has just died in a car accident, maybe the first response is a laugh. You laugh. 15 seconds afterwards, yeah, this emotion changed to the opposite one. And 10 seconds after that, it changed to another emotion and another emotion and another emotion. And that is what I call the emotional disorganization. Because when something really important and something strong happens to me or happens to a character, we don't know what is happening to us. It's impossible to be able to understand what is happening to me. So I don't know what happens to me. Because we can say that, okay, I have an experience in my own life very similar to the character's experience, because once, 5 years ago, I received a phone call and telling me that there was a car accident and then an uncle died in that accident. So that's quite similar to what happens with the character in the play. But what I know about that emotion is something that I understood later when I was organized again emotionally. So I understood what happened to me in that moment. But in that very moment, I couldn't understand anything. And I was only shocked. And that is, I was disorganized. So my own experience is useless for writing the emotions of a character, and it's useless for acting the emotions of a character. And so, what do I do when I'm writing or when I'm acting? Seek for disorganization. And this can be trained, and you can train this organization, because I look for an arbitrary response. I look for mutation, and so I say, I don't know what happens to me, but I know what I'm doing. It happens all the time with actors that they do the opposite. They know what they feel, but they don't know what they do to feel that. So when we put together this emotional disorganization, this I don't know what happens to me, I don't know what is happening to the character, emotionally speaking, with this to get rid from logic, we always think that we understand the psychological logic of life, but we don't. So that illogical way of that illogical way that emotion works, when we put it together with the very logical way that procedure works, these two things produce a spark. That spark is theater. Because and that this is why I underlined very, very much, I remarked very much this thing about emotions. Because that is the strongest tool we have, writing, acting, and directing a play. Hamlet is a character who is disorganized all the play, 5 acts. He doesn't know what happens with him about his father's death and everything else, but especially about his father's death. And he's disorganized in so many different ways along all the 5 acts. And that's a very huge example. And why did Shakespeare knew this so he could see it so clearly? I think because of poetry. Because poetry is really a disorganization, an emotional disorganization itself. So we can say about the rules of playwriting that the best way for creating is those things that we don't know, not what we know about what we are writing. We know a lot of things about what we are writing, but really the key for creating, for making a creation, for making art is it has to do with what we don't know. We don't know exactly what we are writing when we write as a child, no? And we'll discover something else that was written there when we read it properly as a scientist. So we discover something that we weren't aware about. And about emotion, we don't know what happens to me, what happens to the character. And so this not knowing, there is where creation will really come out. And that's the only way that my own creation will surprise me. Because if not, we artists, what they are? What are they? They are superior, and they know everything, and they tell us what they know about life. I don't think so. I think that really a really creative work is that one that surprises the author himself. And then we have to let and to assume that we don't know everything about what we are writing, about what we are creating. And maybe we discover that much mucho tiempo después, a long time after we discover what we wrote. You know, I remember in my play, Are You There? It's in the this male character, when he knows, well, afterwards he knows that his wife is dead, and he says in one moment, when you and he lives with his wife ghost for a long time, even if he can't see her. But in some part of the play, he says that, well, you don't love who is actually there. You only love the one who's gone. Because when you have it there before your eyes, love is impossible. No? That's what the character says. One day after the show, an old lady came to me and she asked me, are you the author of this play? And I said, yes. And why do you say that love is impossible when you have the person before you? And say, well, I said, no, I'm not saying that. That's what the character says. No, and she said, no, this is what the play says. And I don't like it, because I think that love is possible when you have the person with you and you can see it and everything. And I said, no, madam, that's not right. Because it's not the play, because I don't agree with that. Javier, I don't agree with that. That is what the character says. So, well, the old lady wasn't really happy with that conversation. But then I discovered sometime after that she was right. The play says that. And it doesn't matter if I agree or not with that, even if I'm the author. Because the play dialogues with me too. And maybe I don't completely agree with what the play says. Because maybe the play is saying some kind of truth of some part of me and some part of my work in some moment of my life. But it's not a truth that is my truth. It's the truth of the play. And I can argue about that myself and think about that thing that the play is saying, that love is impossible when you have your lover in front of you. And I keep thinking about that, what my own play says, you know. And I'm very happy that happened to me, because I understood a lot of things about playwriting with that experience. And the main thing that I learned is that creating must be an adventure. And in an adventure, there are a lot of unexpected things that will happen to you. And if they are not happening, these unexpected things, it's not an adventure. And if it's not an adventure, it's not a creation. So we are there quite blind. We are there following these rules that each play creates itself. They invent, no? The play invents these rules. And we are there trying to follow the rules that our own writing establishes. Oh, it's been a lot of time I've been speaking. Well, I don't know if I make myself clear. I'd like to listen if there are any questions or comments, and or anything you want.
Thanks, Javier. I'll let it open to people if anyone does have a comment or question. Either you can use the raise hand and I'll go to you, or you can put it into the chat as well if you'd like. I give it a minute or two in case anybody does. I wonder, could I kick it off maybe then with a question a little bit about the disorganization and how that plays in with actors when you're directing them? How would you explain to them what you're looking for in terms of the disorganization and disorder that you're looking for in a play?
Well, it's as I said, when I in my workshops, in my acting workshop, that is, we train it with several exercises. But when I'm directing actors, the actors are not only from my school; they come from everywhere. But I tried to lead them to this way of working, and I try that they don't notice that I'm doing that with them, because sometimes because actors they think that they understand the character, and they think that they understand the right emotional response, and so I work very kindly with them, and I ask them questions, and I make them, and I ¿cómo sería los engaños, Mía?
I deceive.
I deceive. I see. I los engaño, pues me sale cheat, pero no.
Deceive.
¿Cómo?
Deceive.
I deceive them. That's right. I deceive them. So because I have to make the actors think that they are doing what they want to do when they only do what I want them to do. So but I lead them. It's quite easy, because I suggest one way and say, okay, let's try this. Let's try this and see what happens. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then when they understand that it really works and really is very enjoyable for them, so there begins something like, they something contagious among all the cast, and so it gets quite easy. But it's because you have to be quite brave to do this work, because it's unlogical, and so it's only that, to be brave, and so I encourage them to be brave. We are only rehearsing. Nothing bad will happen, but it's easy. The easy way, or the good thing about this is that I only get involved with emotions, but not psychology. I won't ever get involved with the psychology of the actors. I don't, as I say it in the article, no one can play games with no one's history. I won't speak about the traumas and your father and your mother and your and anything like that. It's only about emotional. How emotion works. And so I tell them, let's do this. breathe, no, and then here, please, a laugh. I want a laugh. Let's try to do this. And then well, breathe again and go to the opposite emotion, and then breathe again and go where? And suddenly they begin to enjoy this thing of not knowing what is happening to me. And so I said, let the text do its work. So and actors do this other work that is seeking for this organization and not knowing what is happening to me. And this is not confusing for the audience. Why? Because the audience is seeing something alive. And that is what emotion is for, to make acting alive.
Thanks, Xavier.
Because emotion, only one thing more, because this is quite important. Emotion has not, it's not only related to drama. Emotion is related to being alive, you know, on stage. It's not only drama. It's not all about crying or laughing or everything. It's about being alive.
There are two questions in. I might go to Kathleen first, if you wanted to unmute yourself, Kathleen, and go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, Kathleen. How are you?
Hi, Javier. This is fascinating. In terms of the balance between the procedural scientific brain and the chaotic emotional response, could you talk a little bit about character? It seems like it teeters between the two in terms of like socioeconomic background, you know, and I guess the character in some ways is revealed through the script and the choices they make. But can you talk about character, how a character fits in this sort of system?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. Well, a character is it has a lot of we know a lot of it. We know maybe we know part of his story, about his backgrounds and everything, and his circumstances and everything. But and so the character knows a lot of things, and so the actor, yes, he knows a lot of things about the character, but knowing something doesn't mean that you get the right emotional response to what happens in the play. I know that I love this guy, this girl. I know it. The character knows it. I'm the actor who's playing that character. I know what the character knows, that I like very much this girl, this guy, and I love her, I love him, and that I'm going to say her or him that I love him in the next scene. But what will happen to me, I don't know. You know, it's not that I don't know what I feel. I know what I feel, but I don't know what will be my emotional response in that moment, because I will be disorganized. Telling someone you love him, telling someone you want to marry him or her, telling someone I want to have children with you, I know it. I really know it. I can think of anything else day and night. I know it. But in the very moment, I don't know what is happening to me. How to understand the first scene in Richard III between Gloucester and Lady Anne, if we don't speak about emotional disorganization? There's no logical for this character and for the actress that plays it to receive this ring from Gloucester, this killer, this assassin, you know, if it's not through the emotional disorganization. Maybe as you're English in the English speaking, you have the Shakespeare great English words, and there is this disorganization. But as we play Shakespeare translated into Spanish, we don't have that poetry. So we have to think about emotional disorganization. Isn't that clear, Kathleen?
And then the final question I'll read out to you, Javier. It's from Joanne. You mentioned near the start that the feeling of anticipation before the play starts is theatre, and that is so often we are disappointed with what comes next. It was reassuring to hear you say that. I am also so often disappointed with theatre and didn't realise that was a common experience. Why do you think that is? That the art form we chose to work in, so one that we often don't enjoy as much as audience members?
Yes. Who wrote that?
It's Joanne. I don't know if she may have her camera. She has her camera on there. Yeah.
There. Hi, Joanne. How are you? Well, I think that relationship with art is the same that we have with love. We don't fall in love three times a week. We fall in love with, if we are lucky, 3 or 4 times in a lifetime. I think our relationship with art is quite the same. Maybe if I'd love to be, I'd like to be much more naive. To be surprised in theater as I did when I was younger, and when you are used to be an audience in your own town, in your own city, and directors, playwrights, the actors on stage, it's much more difficult to be surprised, and not to be disappointed. But it happens when you go. I am sure that you come over to Buenos Aires and without understanding a word of the language, I'll take you to my small theater, and you'll be delighted because that experience because you wouldn't know all the people there, and it would be a really, really completely new experience. So I think that we have to because maybe we are not a good spectator anymore for theater, and so if it happens to me, I go to the theater in Dublin or in Barcelona or in a small town in Argentina, and I'm delighted. And all the people said, "Oh, well, more or less, she's doing all the same thing that she did in the last show." And the director is so. Well, I don't know that. I was delighted. I was enjoying. I was criticizing anything, and it's a subjective experience, of course. And so, that Picasso, he was developing all his art, and he was he wanted to draw like a child again. That's what he really wanted to do, to draw like a child again. I think that we have to do something like Picasso, try to be a child again. And when I direct, and when I write, and when I'm making a new show, what do I want? I want make the audience become children. And sometimes it happens, and you see the audience there looking with the eyes wide open, what is happening on stage. And if it happens for 3 minutes, I think, well, it's well done. You understand?
Thank you so much, Javier. I just wanted to remind people that you, from next week on for 8 weeks, you will be running writing workshops with us, and the applications for that close tomorrow. So from next Wednesday until the 15th of September, you'll be running workshops with us. We're so grateful for you for coming joining with us today, and we will make this session available on YouTube for anyone who missed it. I'm going to give a link in the chat to anyone who might be interested in that call out there. And just to formally close the session, just to say thank you, Javier. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Accelerate is supported by Innovate Together from Rethink Ireland, and ITI is core funded by the Arts Council.